So he had tried all the time for us to get a visa in Amsterdam, so in Holland. So eventually he got set for us to come in February 1940 to visit him for 3 months. So, so we went to Amsterdam. My father had taken a furnished apartment on the Merwedeplein. This is how it looks now, but I have a picture how it looked then. Well, I'll show you later anyway. The Merwedeplein, a beautiful square with apartments on both sides. There were no trees. It was all open space at the time, and certainly no cars. And all the children from the whole neighborhood, Jewish and non-Jewish children, came out to play there. And one day, a little girl came to me and introduced herself, and her name was Anne Frank. Of course, at that time, she was nothing special. She was just one of my many friends. The Dutch were lovely. They all welcomed us. They were all interested in me, where you came from, how is it in Austria, and you know, I could speak a little bit of Dutch because Belgium is a two-language country, Flemish and Belgium and French. And we had to, of course, learn both languages. But it's not quite like Dutch, and I didn't know a lot, but a little bit. So we became friends. She took me up to her apartment, and I met her family, her mother, her father, and her older sister. But we were not best friends because I told you I was really a tomboy. I liked to play with the boys, rounders and rough games. And Anne was really a sophisticated little girl. We were both 11. She was 1 month younger than me. And she was interested in her hairstyle, in her clothes, and always in boys already. With 13 years old. When I told her I had an older brother, her eyes grew very big, and she asked when can she come to my apartment. My brother was 3 years older. He was not interested in little girls at the time. My brother, by the way, he was already when he was a little boy, he was a very, very talented musician. The talent came from my grandfather. With 4 years old, he could already play. He had the perfect ear that you sang or whistled a tune, he could find it and play it. And in this apartment, there was a furnished apartment belonging to a Christian. That's very important. And there was even a piano, so he got piano lessons again. He got an accordion, he got a guitar, he formed a little band, and we settled down and we were very happy. But the happiness didn't last very long, because in May, so after 3 months, in the night we heard guns and shooting, and we put the radio on, and it said, terrible news, the Germans are trying to invade our country. Holland was not in the war, in the First World War, because it's under sea level, and they just flooded the country, and the Germans bypassed it. So they say, we are just going to open our dikes, and Hitler can't come in. But of course, the war had changed. There were aeroplanes, and they just landed with parachutes behind the flooded land. And as well, it was the first time in this war that a civilian city had been bombed, Rotterdam. 3,000 casualties, and within 5 days, the Dutch gave up. We still tried to escape to the harbor to take a boat to England, but it was too late. So we went back and we thought, well, we'll see what happens now. And nothing happened. So we thought, oh, well, you know, they are not going to do anything in Holland. And the Dutch said, don't worry, we are going to protect you. But the Germans just didn't want to alienate the Dutch, and so they went very careful. And as well, there started to be quite a big Nazi party that is not always known in Holland. Through the diary of Anne Frank, people think everybody in Holland was good. Well, it wasn't. There was quite a big Nazi party, not immediately, but slowly. And it looked at first, you know, that Hitler was going to win the war, because by 1941, practically the whole of Europe was occupied by Hitler. Norway, Denmark, Holland, Belgium, France, Greece, the whole Balkan, the whole Europe was, and Poland, of course, was occupied by Hitler. So those Nazis thought, well, when the war is finished, they're going to get good positions. But the majority of the Dutch people hated, the Germans hated to be occupied, and there started to be, like in all the occupied country, a big resistance movement. And those people were then later the ones who helped us in hiding. But we are not so far yet. So slowly the measures against the Jewish population started to appear after several months. And it was not too bad, you know, we could live with it. For instance, you were not allowed on public transport. Well, everybody had a bicycle, and Amsterdam is not so big, you can walk really everywhere. Then you were not allowed to concerts or cinema or children's swimming pools and things like that, which was a nuisance, but it didn't really matter too much. Then you were, there was curfew in the morning, you were not allowed to go out early or late in the evening. So it started to become more and more difficult, but not dangerous yet. And so all the time something else appeared. Then we had to wear the Jewish star. That became already more dangerous because one day they cordoned off a part of Amsterdam and took away, arrested all the Jewish boys and men who were in that part of the city. And those people were never, ever heard of again. Only after the war did one hear they were taken to Mauthausen. You might have heard of that camp, an Austrian death camp, really horrible. And they were just thrown down from the cliffs there. But luckily we didn't know that at the time. Then we had to go to Jewish schools, which by itself wasn't bad. But again, the Nazis knew there are a lot of Jewish kids which they really wanted to get. So they came with trucks, went into a classroom, told the children, go down on the truck, and they disappeared. The parents waited in the evening for the children to come home, never turned up, went to the police, went to different institutions, even the Nazis. Nobody gave them information. And again, only after the war did we hear, again, they were sent to Mauthausen and just murdered there. So it became really scary to go out, to go to school, to do anything. So we lived in fear. That was 41 to 42. We lived in fear. So every evening we were still together as a family. We were, you know, I wouldn't say happy, but content that nothing had happened, but scared. And then in June 1942, about 10,000 young people between the age of about 16 and 25 got a call-up notice to be deported to Germany to work in German factories. You know, they never said things by their real name. It's always something which didn't sound bad. So many people sent their young people, but they never went to Germany, they never were heard of again. But that was the time my brother Heinz got sent, and Anne's older sister Margot. And that is when our parents, obviously, we didn't know, had prepared to disappear, go into hiding. So we had a week till my brother would have to go. So my father called us together one evening and he said, Heinz is not going and we are going to go into hiding. Well, I must say I didn't quite get going to hiding. Adults going hiding, you know, it was a, I said, I know the game hide and seek, but what do you mean we're going hiding? And my father explained, we are going to stay with wonderful people from the resistance. We sometimes don't even know them, who are willing to risk their life to help Jewish people. And as I say, there were many of those. But he said, nobody can really take or once take a family of 4, so we have to split up. You go with Mutti, with my mother, and Heinz will go with him. I didn't want to be separated. I said, no, please, let's stay together. He said, no, if we go in 2 different places, the chance that 2 of us will survive is greater. And that hit me. So survive, I said, well, you mean there's danger that we might be killed? And my father said, yes. And that was, you know, for a 13-year-old person, quite scary. As I say, you know, things had been bad, but parents protected us and never said how dangerous it's going to be. But at that time, I really knew then our life is in danger. Well, we went, so we parted and went to different hiding places. The people from the resistance came and looked over every hiding place. We had to change about 6, 7 times and built a hiding place within the hiding place, because the Nazis did house searches. In the night, they knocked on doors. Dutch people had to open the doors. They had to let them in. They had to search their homes. If they fancied an article, they just took it away and searched for Jewish people, because they really wanted to catch every Jew. It is really amazing how much effort they put into all this, all the soldiers, all the work, all the transports to go to the camps, all the building of the camps. You know, it's amazing. And even till when they knew practically they were losing the war, they were still going after the Jews. That's really incomprehensible. So we had a hiding place, and in the night when they knocked, we quickly went in there, and you can imagine we didn't dare to sleep properly, and it was very, very scary. And so people where we were staying became scared as well. So that's why after 6 months, or sometimes even after several weeks, they said you have to change hiding place. So we were hiding for 2 years, till 44, when my father phoned my mother one day and said the woman where they are hiding is blackmailing them for more money. And our money was running out, so my father said, please, they were in the country, we were in Amsterdam, please find us a new hiding place. So by 44, it became already very difficult. Many people were arrested, many didn't want to do it. Dutch people went into hiding as well. So it took my mother 3 weeks to find a contact who knows a safe hiding place. It was a Dutch nurse. But it turned out this Dutch nurse was really a double agent. She really worked for the Nazis, pretended she was a member from the resistance. So that's a bit of a complicated story, but on a Tuesday, it was my 15th birthday, we had just moved as well to a different hiding place. We had a knock on the door in the morning, and the Nazis stormed in and took us away, my mother and me.